Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel of mprugs.com. My name is Mike. I'm the moderator in the series of videos that is all about Persian rugs and carpets from around the world. And in this video, I want to show you 3 generations of Isfahan rugs. There are a lot of people who talk about older Persian rugs versus newer Persian rugs. And being that I'm fortunate to be able to do this, being in the wholesale family, we specialize in high quality Persian rugs. And being surrounded by fellow wholesalers, we're oftentimes, we are in contact with each other on a daily basis. So for the series of videos, every once in a while, I'm able to gather up a few pieces and be able to use them and actually show you the differences. And so that instead of you going out and literally looking at a picture, for example, of an antique Persian rug, I can show you pictures. But when you actually are able to put 3 carpets that are literally the same, all 3 of these are very fine Isfahan rugs. All 3 of them silk foundation. All 3 of them are what we call of a masterpiece quality. The difference between the 3 pieces is that you basically have 3 generations. Actually, it's a lot more than 3 generations. To my left is a brand new, this is made by Habib Khan. It's very highly respected weaver in Isfahan. He's not up there as far as fame as, for example, the Sarafian name, but his rugs are considered extremely well made. And I'm going to show you a little bit about him, being that this is a new piece. Then here in the center we have, this is about 65-year-old. It is not a Sarafian, and I did this on purpose. I did not want to throw in a Sarafian rug and compare it with other rugs. This is a very high quality, also between 900 to 1,000 knots per square inch, classic Isfahan. This is basically what I'm sitting on right here. About 65 to 70 years old. So we're looking at, to my left, the year 2020, 2021. Basically, I'm sitting center. We have about 1960. About 1960. That sounds about right. Then to my far right here is an older piece. This one dates back to about 1900. So you have every 60 years, you have a new Isfahan rug. So we got 3 pieces here, and all 3 of them are very fine. They're made with the cork wool, which is basically lamb wool. All 3 of them feature the Persian knot, the Isfahan. These are all high quality Isfahan rugs, silk foundation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get behind the camera, as I always do, and I'm going to show you the differences between them and how the wool, the dyes, designs, how things have evolved. Even though, and I did this again on purpose, I have chosen 3 pieces with 3 different designs. But these are all the same type of rugs. They're all woven the same way. They're all made up of the same workmanship and material. So I'm going to see you again here in just a second. So yeah, I'm back again as always, and to get things started, as I mentioned to you, I'm going to be using these 3 Isfahans here as what I think would be a great examples. Chose them deliberately because they are different designs but virtually identical. When you talk about all 3 of them have a silk foundation, all 3 of them are Isfahans, all 3 of them are made with very fine, what is known as cork wool. but these are basically, it's lamb wool. That's basically what I always tell people. You know, sometimes rug dealers make a big deal about the cork wool and all that stuff, but basically it's very fine lamb wool, which for those of you who are new to Persian rugs, think of human hairs versus children hair. You know that children have much finer hair, and the same here with the wool. Regular wool, it's much coarser, much thicker than lamb wool. But here we have three different designs. On the far, this is a new piece that I mentioned earlier. This has a contemporary, it has a gombat design, which in Isfahan rugs, it's really rare. And what is even more unique about this piece is that it's solid black. The black and gold is something that has typically only found in Tabriz rugs and Gom rugs, and it's extremely rare to find it in the Isfahan rugs. Then here in the middle we have what could be a Serafian. This is an extremely fine piece that dates back to about 1960. And then on the far left, this is what the old antique Persian rugs were all about. And you can see by the designs, I'm just going to step back a little bit, and you can actually see how the designs evolve. When you look at antique Persian rugs, it is actually this design, which is almost like a tribal, it's a village design. This design is very common in antique rugs. But after World War II, when the production of Persian rugs really started, when transportation, shipping to Europe, the United States, it became much easier, much more common. And in the designs of Persian rugs evolved. For example, the classic medallion design. When you look at Persian rugs that date back 150 years, it is rare actually to find medallion rugs in antique Persian rugs. It's nowhere near as common as it is nowadays. And then the gombat design. This design, which is taken off of the, if you look inside of mosques or market squares, if you go to my website at mprugs.com and there I have a gombat section that is all about gombat rugs, and you will notice in the video I talk about it. The ceilings of mosques, the walls, Middle Eastern architecture, you will typically have tile patterns. So imagine being inside a mosque or a marketplace, any type of large public building, and you look up, you see the mosaics that are stuck on the walls and ceilings. Well, now you know where the gombat design came from. But the gombat design, for example, wasn't really around 100 years ago. Most of the medallion rugs weren't around 100 years ago. So this is how it evolved. You had individual rugs that were made typically by families, and then you had the traditional pieces after World War II. Really, that's when it started picking up. And you have the medallion pieces. These are the traditional pieces. And then in the last 20, 30 years, really contemporary designs like the gombat has really taken shape. Now, this is as far as designs are concerned. As far as the wool and the dyes, in the old days, like in this piece right here, this antique piece, this is all pure vegetable dye. And one of the differences that you can tell, in the old rugs, it's pure vegetable dye. Versus in the new rugs, it's a mix between commercial and vegetable dyes for two reasons, at least in Persian rugs. Thankfully, the Persian government is still insisting on all handmade Persian rugs being made with a certain degree of natural dyes. The natural dye is supplemented by commercial dye. And there's good and there's bad. I'm just going to put it this way. There are some people who frown on the new rugs because of the usage of commercial dyes. I actually like, if it was up to me, I can tell you right now, of the 3 types of Persian rugs that you see here, spanning 120 years, I'll take the new one. That's my personal favorite. And that's simply because you have uniform colors. You also have much more selection of designs and everything. And that's just my own personal preference. It's no different than the ones who collect cars. Some people consider the antique, the older cars, the classic cars, to be much worth more than the newer ones. I look at a car as a form of transportation. I want to go from point A to point B in the most comfortable way. And so I'll take a new one over an older one. That's me. But in Persian rugs, you have those who love the antiques because they have the earthly colors, the vegetable dyes, as well as the wool, the way the wool was prepared in the old days. And because of the fact that you had nothing but vegetable dyes, as you can see, it is not as shiny. Even though it's a pretty well-lit room that we're in the warehouse here, the rug is not as shiny as the newer pieces. And you will also see how over the decades it ages differently. Some areas are darker than others. And when you see them in person, you can always tell the difference. Here we have a section that is darker. Here's a little bit more faded. So it definitely has the patina look. You'll notice it has the earthly colors, the greens and the reds, but it's a very muted rug. Now, of the 3 pieces, this is also obviously the most expensive. It's the most valuable piece, being it is as old as it is. And because of its silk foundation, because of its extreme tight weave, I mean, this is a rug that even back then this was purchased by obviously a very wealthy family who displayed it as an art piece. This is why this rug is in absolute immaculate, perfect condition. And you can just see that there is no wear and tear. But I mean, again, I'm not trying to sell something here. This is, these are carpets that I have basically borrowed from our friends here. Some of them are ours, some of them are from our friends. I wanted to show you the differences. On the post-World War II Isfahan rugs, you have the introduction of not only commercial dyes, but you also have the classic designs, center medallion, and the emphasis then really becomes on knots and on workmanship and everything. And you can just tell here when I look at, I'm just going to point my ugly finger, you can see how tight the weaves are. I mean, this is just absolutely incredible. And what you see here in the colors, these are very, very classic. The beiges, the blues, the reds. This is classic Isfahan. Then we move to the new pieces, and this is really where you see a whole new types of variety in colors and designs. Like I said, with the new rugs, the main difference between them, as far as when you look at the old pieces are thinner. Even when they were made, the newer ones tend to be a little bit thicker. As far as durability is concerned, I like the newer ones over the antiques. This is a piece that is, I mean, it's 100, I mean, this thing is 120 years old. So obviously you expect, this is a granddaddy of rugs. I am not expecting a grandfather to be able to compete at the Olympics against a 20-year-old. But when you talk about placing a rug in a room and you're going to have furniture on it, I would say new is better than old. But if you are displaying it as an art piece, it really doesn't matter, because any of these rugs will last you a lifetime and then some, as is proof right here in this piece. But the main thing I wanted to show you was the differences in how they feel. And you can see how it went from thin to a little bit thicker to thickest. Also, when you talk about the wool, in the old days, the wool was not as pressed. It was much more coarse. This is why in the old days the knots were not as high. The knot count was not as high in the very antique rugs. It was virtually impossible to make 1,000 knot per square inch Isfahan rug. Even though this one is silk foundation, the knot count is nowhere near what the finer pieces are. It was really impossible to do it back then because the wool simply wasn't spun small enough to where they could do it. It wasn't twined as tightly back then. You can do it now. So here you have 3 examples. If somebody were to ask me my personal opinion, I always go with the new stuff. That's generally speaking what I like. But I understand. Some folks are, if your home decor, especially is very rustic, and if you have a lot of leather, a lot of old stuff in your home, well, then you're obviously going to want to go with an antique rug or a semi-antique. But it's really up to you. But the main thing was, there's 3 rugs here. They're all Isfahans. They're all silk foundation. They're all beautiful masterpieces. But I don't think it is doing them any justice to say that one is better than the other. To me, it's always been about the person who enjoys them. And so I hope this video is of help. I hope the video may explain some of the features in the antiques versus the news in the new rugs. And so, as always, feel free to check us out at mprugs.com. Look at our other videos. Subscribe if you like, or if you have any questions, put them in the comments section. And so I wish you the very best, and we'll be coming back to you with more videos as time goes on. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.